Welcome back to National Report. An Assembly Speaker in Wisconsin making national headlines after announcing he's hiring retired police officers to investigate aspects of the 2020 presidential election. And that lawmaker, Robin Vos, joins us now here live on the program. Speaker Vos, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Emma. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So the Milwaukee Journal claims that you recognize Biden won Wisconsin, that you're not trying to change the results. First question, is that accurately reported?
It is accurately reported. Look, the election is in the rearview mirror, but we certainly know that even if you look at the basics of how the election was conducted, there were questions right from the get-go. The state assembly last November and December held hearings. We had over 13,000 emails from all across the country with people reporting irregularities, many in their own states, but a large number that happened right here in Wisconsin. So at that time, we had the Legislative Audit Bureau ordered to be able to do an audit of the election. They're doing that right now. But the longer that this has gone on and the more that reports have come in, we have seen that Americans all across the country, and especially in Wisconsin, question the results of how the election was conducted. So the goal is not to overturn the last election, but to make sure that the next election that we hold in Wisconsin, at the end of it, people walk away saying it was done fair and square.
Talk to me about these retired police officers, why you think they're the right people to look into this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of doing the investigation is to make sure that we show the public that the process we use in Wisconsin was conducted fairly. Now, I think there are serious questions that have to be answered. We saw billionaires fly in and drop tens of millions of dollars into Wisconsin, many to influence the election, but also to work on the process of how we administer our elections. If the Koch brothers came to Wisconsin and decided they were only going to put money into Republican areas, the left would have been outraged. But the idea that they came in with liberal money only going into Democrat areas and basically took over the elections, that seems to be no big deal. So we want to investigate to know how that money was actually utilized. Did it influence the final outcome so that if it occurs again, or what we can do to prohibit it, we make sure that in 2022 it's not going to happen.
So a Democrat from the state is saying concerns that this could undermine confidence in the election that was conducted properly. Again, that's to Ann Jacobs there, who spoke to the Milwaukee Journal. I want to get you to respond to that, and then also whether or not this investigation has started yet, and maybe whether you faced hurdles in getting it going.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the Democrats are doing everything they can to try to throw roadblocks up to simply looking to make sure the election was conducted in the way that our state laws require. These investigators are professional. They are not somebody with a partisan background. I mean, one was involved in some Republican politics, but the others were not. And the goal is to have them use their skills to come back to us with evidence where we can show the public exactly what occurred. Now, we're in the process of passing some reforms in Wisconsin, good ideas that are going to get to Governor Evers' desk. As many people across the country know, he's one of the most liberal governors in the entire country. So we have to do our due diligence to show him that we actually have problems that need to be solved. And that's what these investigators are going to do. Now, Democrats have continually said this is nothing more than a red herring. But look, if you look at national polling, half of the country believes there were fraudulent problems in the last election. So if we go into the 2022 election with that same percentage, whoever wins, whoever loses, we have to have a basic faith that the outcome was done according to the rules that are on the books. And Democrats, unfortunately, are more than willing to bend the rules to help themselves. We just want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, you talk about election reform bill possibly heading to Governor Evers' desk here. We've seen that in Georgia, in Texas, and some other states across the country following the 2020 election. What would you like to see included in it specifically for Wisconsin?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important is to ban out-of-state billionaires, frankly, even in-state billionaires, from being able to hire folks to run our local elections. That just is wrong from the very beginning. Number two, in Wisconsin, we have something where people were able to check a box on a form during the pandemic, so they didn't have to show a photo ID to go and vote. That was wrong. It was illegal. Our Supreme Court said so, but people still continue to utilize that process. We had people who were on the voting rolls who probably shouldn't be there. We're now going through a purge of that process so that only people who are eligible are going to be on the rolls. We had ballot drop boxes where they were unstaffed and certainly not secure. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at in Wisconsin. We've got a good package of bills moving through the legislature, and my goal is to get them to Governor Evers' desk, hopefully this summer, but certainly before the end of the year.
All right, that's Speaker Robin Vos joining us live from the great state of Wisconsin. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma. Have a great day.